on, and there is a public comment at the end. So for now, if you will join me on the pledge of allegiance.
Do you want to point out the exits?
Point out the exits. Those are the little exits towards the front and exit towards the rear. You don't have to use it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't have any communications. So this consent agenda, I'd like to motion approval of the minutes of November 27, 2023, as well as the monthly reports from the building department and police department.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll jump to the work sessions. I'm gonna put up on the screen. What I have, we turn that on, Sean? So we wanted to have another work session on ARPA, which is the America Rescue Plan Act. And these are funds that the town of Lewisboro received from the federal government as a result of the COVID. And it's, I don't think that's my screen, Sean. No, it's second on the screen.
Except that HDMI, is it on your computer end?
Function, okay.
Oh, hold on. It's not.
Watching out. No.
Good job. Oh, we're going to.
Who is it that?
I haven't seen the prequel.
I was just told I've got to watch the Amsterdam. Amsterdam. They said, but I heard it's a hospital show. Just like.
Okay, so we had gone through this before, but just as a refresher, I put this together again. So again, the American Rescue Plan Act signed into law by President Biden on March 11, 2021, part of the economic stimulus package. Town of Lewisboro received a total of $1.28 million. The funds must be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and the deadline to spend the funds is December 31st, 2026. How funding can be used. So this is, COVID-19 expenditures, premium paid essential workers to cover lost revenue, provision of government services, investments in water, sewer, broadband. How funds cannot be used.
What the word obligated, does that mean we just have to commit to it?
To some, yeah.
We have to in writing, but we have to, is there any protocol?
Yeah, for under $10 million, there isn't like a, it's an easy reporting mechanism. So we don't have to go through all the, if it was over $10 million, you go through a more intense process on reporting back to the government on how to spend money.
So a resolution that
so all we do is we voted on, and that's resolution.
So
And then
we've done that already.
Nisha does the reporting part of it.
Yeah, between her and I, we get like this quarterly reporting. Yeah.
and just to frame it out, we have 500 and
We're gonna go into that.
you guys
So,
are coming up in a slide. Okay.
Yeah, so
Good.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the final, this is what I was just talking about. The final rule offers a standard allowance for revenue loss of up to $10 million, allowing recipients to select between a standard amount of revenue loss or complete a full revenue loss calculation. So we're doing a standard, which is much easier. And so, in red letters, we will use the standard allowance for government services. And basically, government services means about anything that we pay for to run town government. Some of the examples: revitalize parks and public spaces, road building and maintenance, and other infrastructure, general government administration, administrative facilities, environmental remediation, provision of police, fire, and other public safety.
So permissible uses equals governmental services, and that's what governmental services is.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. The Association of Towns advice, Association of Towns were part of that organization. And they've had some webinars on this topic. And their recommendation is to consider ARPA for more unique projects, less likely to be available in future grant opportunities. Investment in municipal facilities, amenities, and infrastructure are well suited. Non-recurring costs to improve longer term assets and provide community-based benefits over many years. So this is a spreadsheet that I put together on what's in yellow is what we've already appropriated. So if you start at the top, the park and rec projects, we allocated 242,000. On a two roofs, another 55,000 change. The employee handbook is 5,600, and generators 98,000. And we had already, so those three were allocated. Those four we allocated. They totaled the 401,000 that's highlighted. That was the allocation that we voted on February 27th. Prior to that, we had voted on the 350,000 towards the town park playground, and also the drainage work at the town park. And that was through the 350,000. So that leaves us with 533,000 that's available to us to figure out where we're going to spend it.
It's the 350 plus the 401 off of the 284.
Correct. So some of the projects that we've discussed and we've had Parks and Rec, for example, present to us include the second well and the disinfection system for the pool. Eventually, we need to upgrade that system that's there. I noted in red that we can pursue New York State EFC Environmental Facilities called WIA grant, which is a similar grant to what we pursued and received for Oak Ridge 2 years ago, and we're still working on. Pickleball courts, $350,000. A full bathhouse, the estimate was $500,000. And the police are looking for a new vehicle, charger, and to outfit it, it'd be about $59,000. So those are some of the ideas on how to spend the money. Now, one thing I'd like to mention is the roofs, the Honor True roofs, the shop barn. The park barn, we're doing those two through FEMA. So the FEMA have Federal Emergency Management, federal agency. As a result of Tropical Storm Isaias, we had an open case with them, and we have since resurrected that open case, and there's still monies there for us. And so we did the park barn repair, I think this week. Last week. Last week, yeah. And the shop barn, we had to go out to bid. We can go ahead and pursue that, submit it to FEMA, which then would give us about $55,000 extra on top of the ARPA funds available currently here. So we could be up at 588,000, right?
Question, just to interrupt you. So if we do get awarded the FEMA funds, then we won't need to use ARPA funds to pay for the roof.
That's correct. So we will probably, and this is a question to Greg, would we have to, I guess we have to modify that resolution, or the original resolution for the $401,000 from February 27th. If we want to take roofs out of that resolution, the shop barn roof specifically, we have to issue another resolution.
Yeah, you would modify
the resolution.
Okay,
Yeah.
to reallocate
Right.
the funding source
Right.
for a particular project.
Right.
Okay, so we're changing the funding source when we get to that point.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
my other
I
question
mean,
is.
if we're gonna go forward with it, and that's one of the new add-on items for the meeting tonight, is to agree to the low bid. You know, we had to go out to bid
Yes.
for that because of the amount. So once we agree to that, we would pay using our funds, whether they're ARPA or from the general fund, but then we get reimbursement from FEMA.
Question.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to get off topic, but it's sort of related. And it's a little bit of a sore subject, but the grant money that we got for the solar related project that originally started at Onatru. We had very limited discussion, but we started a discussion about
Right.
changing the project from something that was an additional structure on the ground to
Right.
perhaps putting solar on the roofs instead.
Right.
And my question is, could any of the money that we need to allocate towards fixing the roofs be could also overlap with the money being used to put solar on?
No, because the grant is limited
Mhm.
to $100,000. And the initial proposal I saw, Dan wants to speak better to this because he's been working on it. It was 166,000, but we need to verify the structure that because.
Yeah, well, 166, because once you back out the state subsidies and then the IRA cash back tax equivalent thing, it was gonna come back to 100. So we
Right.
designed the project so it backed up to the grant amount.
Okay, so
That's one side,
basically
but the other-
we have to finance the fixing of the roof first before the solar can go on, basically, at the end of the day, this still needs to be done because it won't.
Well, this is
enough.
gonna be done anyway.
I
The new
know.
roof, yeah.
So,
correct.
But I'm just, as much
Yeah.
ARPA funds as we can keep and allocate to
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
projects, the better. But what I'm hearing is that the grant money, after all the items you listed are deducted therefrom and allocated, we're not gonna have enough anyway. So we're still going to have to, my hope was that there's gonna be enough money that we could just.
Take that $55,000 and spend it on.
Something
other
else.
It's a
stuff.
different
Well,
roof.
that's the plan.
The thing is, if we put that solar panel up on the roof, is the barn strong enough to handle it?
No,
That's
well,
what we are trying to check on now. We went around and around on that. And ultimately the solar contractors would bring their
Who's the
own,
we on that?
the committee, myself.
Sustainability committee?
Yeah,
This
And-
was, we mentioned that at the last meeting.
Yeah, I know, I just wanted
The
to,
next thing.
yeah, just
Yeah.
confirming.
for-
that's what we're
yeah,
talking about.
I've visited with Bob Fishman, who's an engineer himself, and to just get a sense of it, but what we. Ultimately, that decision will be made by the solar contractor and they bring their own civil people because they have to stand behind it. But we're in like a catch-22 situation where we gotta get bids. So I reached out to Jan and Joe at Keller Sessions. And asked them, what would it take for them to do a first pass structural so that we would know whether or not, it's biddable and not like go down that as a blind alley and then not.
Right, we wanna make sure that the
So-
repairs that we make are going
Waiting
to
for the
be
response.
enough. To support the structure of the solar,
Where are we in the
right?
process
Is that basically what we're saying?
as far as people at Onatru reparable to the?
I just
I'm
needed an
sorry,
answer
yeah,
to my
sure,
question
sure,
first.
sorry, yeah.
So what we're trying to work out is that the work here, the money that we have set aside, that I know it's moving around, but the 55,000 that we think it's going to cost, that we're trying to get bids on. We're trying to make sure that the work that's done meets the criteria necessary for the solar panels.
But this is a different building.
Different building,
It's
okay,
different.
never mind,
Completely
I'm
separate,
confusing
yeah.
it for no reason, okay.
And we got bids on this and that's what we're gonna, it actually came to less than 55,000.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I just, I just want to know where we are as far as, because there's been some feedback from people as far as their interpretation
Yeah,
of the
so
Onatru
we're-
deed, as well as people at Garden Club, as far as having concerns about what the project's going to be and its location. So I just want to, if you can
Yeah,
update
it's
where
nothing-
that's at.
Particularly new on that, I think we described the meeting we had with the Garden Club presidents. Going through all the different possible scenarios and landing on two possible ones that are like, okay, that's an improvement over what the original parking lot canopy idea. And those two were A, the barn roof, and B, a canopy, but pushed back to the far north eastern corner by the tennis courts, and it would serve as sort of like a shade pavilion.
Well, the
Yeah,
input that I got from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council is they prefer the barn.
For the barn, yeah. No, that's why we want to make every effort to, to know if we can do that.
And the concern that advisory council had was the structural soundness of the,
Exactly what we were looking at.
So is it on a path where, what PrAC is looking at and what sustainability committee is looking at as far as that purpose and what, Garden Club and people looking at the Onitry deed, can we get to a place where everybody's reasonably okay as far as the scope and placement of that?
Yeah, I think you just heard PrAC, Garden Club, everybody, first priority is the barn. And that's why we're focusing on that. The canopy scenario is like backup. And then, if we get to that point, we'll go back out and we'll, talk, and people want to shoot it down, but that would be the backup.
And that's, so right now, DASNY, the
Dormitory Authority
State of New York, are waiting on us to provide the revised scope for the project, and then it's got to go through their finance committee review and then they will award us the grant.
So
We've been awarded, but they need to review the.
the
project
100 is
before-
predicated upon DASNY approval and then,
Correct.
okay.
Right, it's like with any grant, I mean, you get awarded the grant, they say you have it, and then you gotta go through the due diligence and.
And that plan will work its way back to the board for review and approval once
Correct.
it's done.
Anytime we have a grant agreement, it'll be placed in front of the board for approval. Yep. What else can I say about this? So that's pretty much where we are. So now it's a matter of, and we don't have to make a decision tonight. This is just to lay out the groundwork, so you see where we are. And where some of the projects that have been presented
Right.
to us.
If we can, I'd like to just drill down on what we have on the projects for consideration.
Mhm.
So, just to refresh, I know we had a presentation as far as the pickleball courts. And my recollection was that 50 grand had been pledged,
Correct, so we need to spend that money.
and so 50 had been pledged, and then is that another 300 or another, because the proposal I think was for a total of 8 courts, if
Correct.
what Nicole had presented, right?
Right,
And that, so,
that's a good point, because the 350 is all in. But if we're using that, which we are.
that 50, right?
50, then that's another 50 that,
but
so that
what
number
wasn't,
is 300.
but what wasn't in Nicole's presentation was parking that is handicap accessible for the pickleball players who need easy and flat access to the courts.
Right,
And there
yeah.
was a suggestion that perhaps we could use some of the $50,000 for creating those parking spaces right near the courts.
Yeah, that's part of the plan, is to have a path from the existing tennis courts over to the upper parking lot. And then having some handicap spaces allocated.
So
That
going down in
sounds like
grade
a-
as opposed to going up.
Well, it would be sort of level.
Yeah, as opposed to going up from the lower.
Oh, no, you wouldn't go up, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you could walk up.
Yeah.
Right, if whoever wants to walk up those stairs. But the idea is to be able to, for a person to, well, we have the pickleball's on the lower level, right, the basketball,
I
so
know where
that,
it is.
yeah, so that's accessible easily. So if we wanna make the upper one accessible as well, we have to make it accessible. But the plan is to make it accessible anyway, because we're gonna need to get from the parking lot up at the top to
Right.
the tennis courts.
Question,
yeah.
just quickly, 350,000 that's proposed here, including or not including that 50,000 that was donated. Does that include all the structural work that needs to be done? Because my understanding is that the courts themselves were, and where they were located on the hill there were unsound, and there was a lot of
There,
structural work that needed to be
yeah,
done.
it does include it.
So I had some questions about that. I think somebody was gonna look at it from an engineering
They did.
standpoint.
They did.
Do we ever get some kind of report or confirmation that,
I don't, I
stability
haven't
of-
received it. I think Nicole has, but we can confirm that.
okay, just don't wanna have any,
Right,
Hidden
no,
costs
we
before
would
we do it.
not, we would not get past point B without making sure everything was all lined up. We don't want any surprise drainage issues like we did with like,
yeah, cause I mean,
that's really important.
I don't know if
We
we
want to do it right the first time.
right, and I don't know if we ever. And I wanted to make sure we were clear as far as what the actual problem was, which led to the cracks and everything on the tennis courts
Yeah.
over a number of years,
Exactly.
and yeah. And I don't,
And
hopefully
we
that,
want to make sure that it's well maintained too.
yeah, so that's, okay, so that was that. And heading down the,
You skipped one, my favorite one.
right, no, I'm gonna come back, because that was the easier one, I guess. So the pool, and when we went, my understanding is that the second well and the disinfection system are kind of two different things. And the second well, we got a little bit of an education about that from Nicole and from Bill, that the second well is more of an imperative from a capacity standpoint, where the whole area depends upon. And that's like kind of an imperative as
It's a
far as.
precursor to doing the bathhouse.
Well, what happens is once you do the bathhouse, anytime you change the existing plumbing, if you will, the health department's gonna require that you upgrade and bring it to
Well,
standards.
yeah, that water filtration system would be a change. Right now, the one well that we have for the town park is grandfathered again, and it's by the grace of the water gods that we have not had an emergency. So, it's been recommended that we have a second well and a new disinfecting system, so we can successfully have baseball, we can have the town pool, we can have camp at the town park and all the
And showers.
activities.
Back to the issues in Board of Health. So are they, just refresh my memory, the well, I remember from the well, but the well and the disinfection system have to go together at the
Yes.
same.
Well, it's,
Because we're upgrading.
yeah,
Okay, so the both things have to be done at the same
Right.
time.
And we don't have a capacity issue with this, this is just Department of Health requires you have a second well. With these public water systems.
We have a potential, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have it because we're grandfathered, but we have a
Right.
potential, we have a potential issue.
I mean, we've had the well gone bad, go bad, and we have the well pump, I should say, and we've replaced it. But in terms of capacity itself, the aquifer has never tried to.
Yeah, in that sense, that's true. So the opportunity for the grant, similarly said to Oak Ridge, is an opportunity to get for all of that, to lay it out potentially.
Correct, and we had Delaware Engineering come over and take a look at it, so they're putting together design specs for this.
they haven't finished it yet.
I have to check, they probably have, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't think they delivered it.
So picking up on Andrew's line of questioning, so a grant opportunity and playing a little grant beat the clock, does this give us an opportunity to get the 365 funding through the grant in time that we'd be able to have that 365
Well-
back in before the timing is.
You
So,
can't,
No way.
it would be,
It's a reimbursement grant,
right,
so you have to, once, you have to spend it. But you have to wait till after you apply, you can't spend it now and then apply.
no, but right, understood. So like I say, we spent it. Is there enough time to spend it, get it back, and then we have ARPA because it's
No.
grant, we're not
Well,
gonna.
We have to have ARPA, everything has to be designated by
That's what I'm saying, so,
2024.
right,
And if it's not, then we lose it, so we have to designate it ahead of time, by the time Tony does his magic and applies for the grants, and then we find out that we did hopefully get it, and then we go and we spend the money. You could designate it for ARPA maybe, and then.
but you can't,
We're
you
not gonna have
can't
the time,
do
okay.
ARPA and grant.
No,
For the same, I don't think you can,
I mean, you
ARPA
can
and
use-
grant for the same
so-
thing.
So our ARPA is not, it's not in an ARPA account, it's
No.
with our
I'm
funds, right?
aware of that, but,
So we spend our funds, right, but after you apply for the grant,
right,
so you apply for the grant, and then you go ahead and.
I understand the grant process, but as far as if you allocate it for ARPA, then you can't apply for a grant to have it paid for again.
correct, because we would,
Once it's reported, I believe you're correct, once it's reported. to
That's the
ARPA.
point I
because you
was
can't
trying to make.
reallocate the ARPA funds later because
Right.
we have the deadline, so.
So the question is, when would the WIA grant be awarded? That we would know that we could use that.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, when do we actually collect on it? That's a cash flow issue.
So the grant application opens up. I wanna say it's like. May,
It's not a rolling
April,
thing,
May.
it's a
It's that
seasonal.
every year, yeah, and then you have to submit by June, because we just did that with the.
All right, so then it's based on the calendar, the grand calendar, so that's not even a
Yeah,
possibility, so
so-
that answers that question. Okay,
Right.
so
So this would not, I know we were looking at this potentially being a project for next year, but, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
That's obvious.
That, we're not gonna be able to do this next year.
So moving down the column and the bathhouse, that 500. That's, what is that predicated upon, that number? We haven't seen any detailed plans about that. Outlining that.
That was the number I got from Nicole. She, she visited, had Kelly Sessions visit the existing bathhouse and come up with. I believe that's how she did it, came up with the number, but we need to go through a more formal. Process to design. It depends on what we're gonna design
It's
also.
gonna be more than one.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
but Kelly Sessions is looking at it from, is that a little outside of their wheelhouse as far as presenting a proposal for 500,000? They'd be looking at it from an engineering standpoint, not from a construction
Yeah.
or bathhouse development.
They would have, so we would
User's
have,
perspective.
we would have to. Get bids on the engineering work, right, so for the bathhouse. And Pellet Sessions, they actually give us a proposal to do that work, right, to develop the bid spec for the design.
Isn't there, I'm trying to remember, you guys may remember from when Bill was talking about, isn't there something, a similar project larger in Bedford that we could, I think it was in Bedford, that we could,
I've heard of it, but I don't.
that maybe we can look at those plans as a base to get an idea about cost and modify as far as scope, so, right, we have an idea what we're looking at?
You have to be careful though, because it's one of the different footprint and location, and also, construction costs have changed.
No, but even just,
Delicately.
even though this is what a
Yeah.
what a bathhouse looks like, at least we have a concept to look at and then say this is not what our needs are. But like anything else, just having a visual and seeing what, or
Yeah.
even taking a site visit. Like the planning board would be to take a look at it and say, okay, this is what, along with say, the pool committee, which will.
Well, Parks
Committee.
and Rec, because maybe they're gonna say, geez, if we had it to do over, we would do this and
Right,
that.
I just thinking with the pool committee we're gonna create, as well as Parks and Rec. Go there and the site visit by seeing something that exists, may be a real good opportunity to just. Visualize it and go from there, and then lead to what we need and what we don't need, and a more accurate cost assessment.
Yeah. I mean, part of it also is how much work do we wanna put into this, and do you wanna, Nicole's wish is to gut the whole thing, start from scratch. But is there a potential to refurbish what's there, remain within the same footprint,
Okay,
use the
stop,
same foundation?
stop right there. I'm gonna say this, that pool. And
The
the
pool
activity
house.
said, the pool and the pool house, that activity at the town park, that whole area is a huge revenue maker for the town. And if we're gonna just renovate it as opposed to knocking it down and redo it, I think that's a poor expense, a poor way to go about it. It needs to be done and done the right way, because that is the one thing that I see for sure is gonna help us get our money back in the end. Between the pool memberships and, all the other things that we can offer, we're going to increase the usage. I think we're gonna make more money off of it, and I think that we need to invest in it. Do it the right way, not do it halfway, not do, let's do a little paint and spackle, do it the right way.
I believe that we should do it for the future and can make something that lasts. And I agree that it is a potential revenue maker for the town, in that we can not only rent out or have the memberships, but have special events and rent it out to swim teams in the area who have big bankrolls.
Right.
Yeah, we were, aside from maybe the concrete base that's sitting there, other than that, we gotta, I think, knock it down. I mean, I
Well,
remember,
there's even beyond that, I mean. Nicole wants to move like the existing lifeguard house.
right, but she's
Just
again,
move it and use that space for something else.
it's kind of what Mary's talking about. I
Yeah.
mean, you're updating a more modern use and plan as
Create
far
a
as.
structure for the 21st century.
Yeah, so what the needs are and what the, consumers, people in the town and the revenue opportunities, looking at that all together.
So what I'm hearing is that to do that, we have to do the well as well.
Yes.
Yes.
That's,
So
that's the infrastructure part that has to go first.
it, already blows everything in more, obviously.
Well, if we could get the grant,
But
But-
that's,
And the grant is only 60%, covers 60% of the cost. Is that 20%?
but you have a point there, Mary, because if we have, what, 533,000 spent and the pool bathhouse is already 500, then it kind of doesn't, either get the grant or we don't for the pool, for the well, right? So
Right, but if we do the bathhouse and we don't get the money, we don't
then
get the
we have
grant.
to bond for the water, obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you wanna put everything on hold again. Not-
no,
Right.
I think it is too important for the future and well-being of our community. I think we've neglected it long enough and we need to do it right.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it was just, remember there, when the kids were young and going in there, 25 years ago was just, and now we're 25 years later, it's just, we gotta get it ready for the next
You're
generation.
45 years old, I'm not.
That's right. I'm still 30. But it's just, it's time. And I think, it'll be a destination type of thing as far as what it can be. I mean, now we're just looking from a macro standpoint and from what town center, essentially what it can be. If we're taking care of the infrastructure referable to the well and the disinfection system. We're putting some courts in there, now also making it, we've done stuff with fields, we're doing stuff with other components.
No, we've done quite a bit.
Yeah, no, we have.
This is definitely much needed.
Right, but now we're looking at a place, okay, we have something that's a destination center where there's something for many, if not most of the town residents to be able to use some component of it, and then and also aside from it being, it's not exactly the geographic center, but pretty close to it.
Close to it, yeah. So I think, here's my feeling. It's gonna be a big enough project that, we're not gonna have enough ARPA money for this project. So my take would be to bond for that work. And then use the ARPA money for pickleball courts and whatever else we decide. And maybe it's something else that's not on this list.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? What do you want to bond for?
The pool house and if needed, the water system. And again, we don't have to decide that now, but just based on the timing of everything and the legwork that still needs to be done to engineer what we're gonna build, it's gonna take some time.
Right.
And we're not gonna have enough, you can't allocate, you don't have enough in ARPA to cover the cost of the project.
Well, from the pickleball, from what I remember, we're also, we could do, if 8 courts are the 300, 4 courts are 150. So
8 courts or 16 courts.
Yeah, okay, that 8 was the.
I thought 8 was what was presented.
Right,
Yeah, we were
originally we
talking-
talked, if you do the
Yeah.
entire, take up that entire
Right,
tennis court area, it's 16 courts.
right.
And
But
we,
we had talked about doing some raised tennis,
the platform tennis.
platform tennis.
Yeah, but that would be on a separate
Right, I'm aware of that.
operation, not tennis court.
Don't we have those like a phase opportunity if we have, we're doing certain site work and structural or foundational base work. we can, you know, put different courts online all the time, right? Four.
You could, I mean,
you
you could, you know, the other half that we're not using for pickleball, you could use for tennis courts.
Right, or just, you know,
or
get
could
it
be-
set, you're doing
yeah.
enough site work so that over time we can roll it
Right.
out as people get, you know.
Or you could do something similar to what the school district did, where they have a combination tennis and pickleball. And they just roll out the nets and they have the striping, appropriate striping to do both.
Is there anything around scheduling that also could give us some guidance here, like, you know, the bathhouse? Well, it couldn't start in the spring, it'd have to go into the fall anyway, or the, you know, pickleball could start right away in the spring, or like, you know, where is everything land?
I think that the pickleball is one you can do quickly.
And especially if we've
And get it open.
I wouldn't say quickly, just faster than the rest.
Well, when I say
start-
quick, it's relative,
start.
right? It's,
comparatively speaking.
Yes.
yeah.
Does Prac, Mary, have any indication as far as what projected users of pickleball
Oh,
would be?
people have been knocking on our door for a while about singing the praises of pickleball.
No, I know there people are.
To play it. There is someone who started a for-profit, they're taking up old malls and turning like an old Sears into pickleball courts. It's that popular.
There's no doubt that it's popular and it's sweeping across the country and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking
It's
about,
also here in Lewisboro.
that's right, yeah, so we talking, I mean, do we have an indication of use? Are we talking about 200 people? Or are we talking about 2,000 people?
The other, it's not, well,
Yeah,
I would
About
not
close to
guess,
200.
it's probably closer to 200, but it's also a revenue potential for us in that we could host competitions and charge money to compete in a championship.
right.
Yeah, there's definitely an interest. I mean, I was invited to a meeting that I thought was gonna have just a handful of people at the town park and they all came out and.
Well, I've been getting emails on a regular basis.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's interest, there's no doubt that there's a dedicated group of people who would utilize it. It's just-
I'd be willing to learn how to play it. If we had some
So-
good courts. Not that I'm going to compete against you.
For argument's sake, if we agreed to spend the 350,000 towards the pickleball courts, that would leave us with $183,146.
That's the 55.
If I'm subtracting from the 533,146, which is the green,
Wait,
where'd you
wait.
go?
It's an Excel spreadsheet where I can do this tracking for you.
No, wait, let's visualize it mentally before you start playing with the
533,146 is what we have after the spending the 401,158, right?
Right,
So if we took the 350 out of that for the pickleball courts, we should end up with 186, 140,
183.
183, 146. Right?
Yeah.
Then, for argument's sake, I'm just looking at the numbers. If we bought the police car, right? That would leave us 124,146.
can I ask about the police car? I know that they received a donation from a local member of the community in gratitude for the work they did for a wedding. Is this in addition to that cost?
Yeah, that was radio stuff.
That was for
That
the
was-
radio system.
The radio system? Okay,
For
I don't know
radio.
why I remembered it as a car, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
So then, if we,
but that's, excuse me, Angela, just
yes,
on that
wasn't
point.
there another, I thought someone donated a car to the police department.
Yeah, that's the new K9 vehicle.
Okay,
Yeah, that's.
and they
that's
need this as well.
correct.
Okay.
This is gonna replace another part.
so what we're saying,
What I was gonna say is the, what was I gonna say?
I'm sorry.
I don't know, I said if we took the police car, we ended up with 124, 146, and you said, yeah, but, and then
Yeah.
you had some other
there's no but.
Idea.
calculation thought,
Yeah.
but, so what about?
Oh,
maybe
no, for the
paving.
radio system, we're waiting to hear back on a grant. So if we don't get that grant, we're gonna have to pay for that radio system.
Okay.
And that could be the differential, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard, okay,
Would you like to? 15 or something? And then
Yeah,
we'll
it's
look for
about 250, yeah.
all right,
to the west.
Ben,
Can I throw in an item here? I didn't want to even mention it because that we spent this twice over already, but. I'm just thinking, we have the paving going on for Route 35. And
From the state.
yeah, from the state, but they're, you know, as we know, they're not doing any crosswalks or anything. We need some engineering, some pre-engineering to even think about like going for grants or figuring out how much it costs. So, you know, I don't know how much that is, you know, 10 grand, 20 grand or something. But the thing is, there's a kind of a timing issue, potentially, I guess, like if we could get that in a place where we could actually make a decision, you know, does it go forward in time to be able to piggyback on, you know, traffic control that they're doing and all the other stuff at that time.
There's no way we can try and force the hand of the state.
We tried.
Tony, tell them how that went.
Yeah, so I've had multiple calls. We had the last call was a Zoom call with UT, and they're not gonna do anything else. You know, the Route 35 paving, they've already extended the budget for that to get the 7 mile.
6.9
paving.
all right, so they're not gonna do any
So,
crosswalks or anything.
What opportunity is there is with the New York State TAP grant, the Transportation Alternative Program. Which is an open application. We were waiting to hear back on the bond, right? Because we could use some of that money for the engineering work that we would then submit with the TAP grant. That TAP grant is due January 16th, I think.
Have we started working on it?
No. But I did speak to, I met with Health Sessions last week on Friday. There's a possibility they can help us with providing the initial input that'll go in with the grant.
That be
Typically-
covered by our agreement with them that already
Potentially,
exists?
yeah, that's what I'm
Scope
working on.
already taken.
Yeah, that's what I was
But we
thinking.
need, so we need to decide, you know, which project do we, because this grant is up to $5 million. So it's like, you know, we've been talking about Golden's Bridge for a long time. Sidewalks, pedestrian getting people from the densely populated areas of Wild Oak and Wild Oaks and the colonies and the train station, shopping center.
And,
Do we include, and Cross River, it's been
and,
talked about, and there's Vista, the latest. But we have concept drawings for the
some of us have
three,
been talking about it just as long as Golden's Bridge, but continue.
okay? But the current concept was recently developed for Vista. And I have the three Hamlet centers, I have the concepts of the three. We could try to package all that in, I don't know if we're gonna have the time.
And we're still talking about the TAP grant,
That's the TAP grant.
potentially up to $5 million.
Correct, and 5 million will certainly cover the 3 hamlets in my discussion with Jan.
Now, you know, the doability of the project is a factor, and the problem with Vista is like. We've got concepts, but you don't know the right of ways, you don't know, you know, the other kind of traffic design inputs and stuff.
And there's more private right of ways in the Vista
Yeah,
concept and
as opposed to the corner there.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to work with you on making sure that we can get something started in Vista. Not the whole
That's
thing,
Well,
but
exactly,
we
that's
need to
why
get something
I think
started.
we need to define a piece where we can get all those details in shape that could go in, you know, and it's not gonna be from the border already.
I still-
We're digressing from the work session, which was how do we spend the ARPA funds? We're
Right.
getting way ahead of ourselves. We're talking about potentially 124,146. That potentially could be used towards engineering studies there, but could also potentially be
Including Vista.
used for the engineering things that need to be done for the new well and for the items that have to be done at the.
well, the engineering stuff for the wells, it's done. We've already had Delaware to come by, they already sent us a bill to pay for it.
For the second well and the disinfectant system?
For the upgrades to this inspection system, and including the second well, I'm pretty sure. Yes,
So let's double check on that,
Yeah,
because
but-
this is money that I think that we need to start directing at that project, otherwise it'll be 5 years
Mhm.
before we do anything there.
Yeah, to me, none of that comes ahead of the things we're talking about here for the ARPA funds. Just doesn't.
Reset again?
To me, none of
He'd rather
that
spend
stuff.
it on the town.
Not that, none of that comes ahead of these items, because,
Yeah.
for example, something like, bathhouse or stuff with the pool. That's, for decades, we shouldn't be, jumping on something new,
But-
which is yet to be defined, and also the voters didn't approve as far as the bond resolution. We should be,
And even if they had this, the sidewalks, all of it's going to take years and years, where the pool and the things there can be done in our lifetime.
Not necessarily. When you talk to Jan, they just did a project in somewhere. It was fairly quick.
Can I just note about the voters not approving the main argument against it that was made all over the place was that we didn't define what it was that was gonna be spent on. So this, we're talking now about getting that definition. I'm just saying.
what was your point on
You had made a comment that the voters didn't vote in favor of this. I'm just pointing out that the main argument against the bond that was made was that the scopes weren't defined enough of what the money was going to be spent on. I'm just pointing out.
that? Well, I mean,
what we're
that's.
talking about here is about defining the scope. So,
Well, I don't know if that's so or not. That may have been what some people were saying, but,
Okay.
We can't
But,
get
yeah.
into the minds
I
of
just wanna
our
throw that
voters.
out.
We're not going to guess as to why people did or didn't vote in favor of the bond.
We have a well and a water system that is grandfathered by the state, and we need to fix it. So before it falls apart.
right, that should be our
Well, those
priority.
are
And
two separate projects, but doesn't mean you can't pursue both, right?
Yeah, they-
We already
they had the
agreed, we already agreed that the disinfection system needs to be
In my
done.
mind's eye, it's a package deal.
Yeah,
Correct. That's why I say
Right.
package it with the bathhouse and bond for it.
going for the $5 million TAP grant, that great,
Yeah.
Why not? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we, have success in that, opens up all
okay,
kinds of
just
opportunities.
pointing out again, if you have the engineering design to back that up, you have a better chance of getting it.
I mean, I'll have another discussion with Code Sessions to see if they can dust off. I mean, they have some of these concept drawings that they definitely have the Golden Bridge ones. We have the ones for Vista and Cross River. And if we can get them to put that into a package that is sufficient for the application process, then it doesn't cost us anything.
Would love to make.
The engineering essentially prerequisite in connection with the TAP application.
Right, I mean, DOTs, they said that it's the preference is for us to provide as much engineering detail as possible.
Sure.
Now, having had discussions with them, they know how important, the crosswalks and Cross River are for us. I mean, we've had a lot of feedback and we're getting a first sidewalk put in by Bacchio, right? So that's a start for that. And that's what they like to see. So the fact that that's being done, if we submit this application, we have a better chance of scoring well.
Agreed. Yeah, it goes
Yeah.
momentum and we're showing
Yeah.
community support, all that,
That's
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just have to see. How much bandwidth we have to, it's in a short period of time, but.
so when is it, Tommy, in this timeline, that you would like this board to make any determinations on what we're gonna allocate this $533,146 to? When are we going to?
I would say by maybe the first meeting in February. We can do, I know Code Sessions is working on the, for the pickleball courts, they're working on the bid requirements. And once we have that ready, we can actually go to bid, assuming the board decides to, we could still go to bid. Regardless of whether, we don't have to, we have to be in a position to then, if we want to proceed, to accept. Bids that come back.
Well, then if possible, based upon a timetable, if Keller Sessions has their hands in these different potential
Mhm.
ARPA expenditures, then it should be presented at the same time. Essentially project A, project B, project C, knowing what the costs are in these different components, so we can make
Well, you can't
evaluate
do,
them all at the
so
same
you
time.
can't do all of these with ARPA, right?
No, but I mean, as far as you're mentioning all these things that Kelly Sessions is involved in. So I'm just wherever, we should just see what their input is on
Well,
the
right now,
different
just something
potential
pickleball,
options. Okay, just something, well, okay,
just something pickleball,
all right.
right? So my point is, they're working on developing a bid package. And I'll follow up with Nicole, she's working with Joe Sorelli. And,
And you'll follow up and find out what they've done with regard to the second well and the.
yes, I'll
disinfectants
follow up with Delaware.
so that
Sure,
we know
yep.
what that is.
And keep me in the,
Yeah, then we should have a presentation as to both and at the same time, so we can evaluate what the costs are as far as both things. Both of which are potential ARPA category expenditure. This is based upon your timetable, so if we shoot for February to make a decision.
ARPA or TAP.
TAP is for the other thing,
Taps the sidewalks.
that's the
I think.
sidewalks. crosswalks,
And that's June,
Pedestrian safety.
January 16th, you said.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit, it's January 16th, yeah.
Tap is a
That would be-
I get that confused with the county, IMA for the EV charges, that's January 12th.
TAP is for the sidewalks and the
Crosswalks, right.
crosswalks.
Right, okay.
Transportation alternative program.
Okay.
So, okay, so that's more to come.
Yeah.
Unless anyone has any other input. This,
The
oh,
drive,
here's,
the other thing, the driveway in, at Onatru
mhm.
is on a good day, pretty rugged.
So we have that True paving, I didn't fill in the blank.
I don't see it.
Well, it's not on there, it's on my spreadsheet because it was an afterthought, I created that. I think it would be, so that's being paid for by another grant. If you recall, early in the year, we got another grant, 100,000. And we used that for True paving. But the paving,
The front coming in.
yeah, coming in and the
Mhm.
circle and going all the way up to the maintenance barn.
Wow.
So it's a pretty significant area. But it's about $124,000 was the quote that we received. Which means we're gonna have to come up with 24,000.
Mhm.
So either we take that from general fund or we, if there's any left over from ARPA, we can use that.
There any drainage, but that's gonna take care of any,
Yeah,
there's no
that's-
separate drainage issues with that.
No, okay, it's pretty, yeah, so.
Okay.
So when you submit these grant applications, they want to know where's the rest of the money coming from. So when I submitted, I did mention either ARPA or a general fund.
For the 24 or something.
Right,
Give or take. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that hopefully will close that one out fairly soon. And we should be able to get it paid.
It's a springtime too.
Yeah.
Right, so the estimate on the driveway is 124,000,
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
we have a grant for.
100,000.
And, it's just everybody who's following or listening, they have a idea, it doesn't foreclose any great idea that may come. People should, feel free to communicate with us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're done with the ARPA work session. Let's see, we need- let's-
Thanks for laying it out, Tom. I
Sure.
Appreciate it. The lawyer can call.
Make it easy for lawyers.
They're a special
I deal with
group
them
of
every
people.
day. Like, right?
Indeed, indeed.
All right, so next we have new business. This is a resolution approving a cemetery transfer of plots. Graves.
If someone is selling or giving,
Which was,
Yeah,
yeah,
plots
I have
is
the-
another-
so basically this is transfer of graves number 4, number 5 in plot 182. From, one person to. It's all the same family or different families?
Two different families.
Two different families, yeah. So,
Transfer of ownership is what it is.
transfer of ownership of
Correct.
title. Yes. So motion to approve the transfer of ownership of graves number 4, number 5 in plot 182.
So moved.
second,
Discussion, All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we have some add-ons. Let's go over those first. There were 4 of them. The first one is the approval, approving a 2-year renewal of the workers' compensation insurance with Pharma.
And that's who we've had it with.
Correct.
Do we know the premium differential on this 2-year term as opposed to
Yes,
last?
that's
Right
that
here.
email that I sent to everybody. It says the 1 year is 96,000. I'm sorry, 90,000 or 94. For the 2-year, it
It
would
takes
be
it down.
87,000 for the first year, 83,000 for the second year.
Okay.
Anywhere from 83 to 91.
This is,
right.
that's Nisha's recommendation.
That's the recommendation. That's how we've done it in the past.
All right, so
Roll call that.
A roll call. Dan,
We do have to have a
Oh,
second.
second.
I'll second.
Sorry.
Okay. roll call.
Jump
Dan,
the gun.
aye. Andrew,
Aye.
Mary,
Mary Shaw, aye.
Rich. Aye. And aye. Tony. Okay, next is the approval of the order bid for the Underwood Farm Shop Barn Roof Replacement, which we just spoke about.
Those are the estimates.
It's the estimates. We have 3 bids, $42,000, $59,050, and then the third one was $59,210. So the recommendation from Bill Smith, our facilities manager, is to go with the $42,000 bid.
have they done any work for the town before?
I'm not sure.
It's work over 30,000, so we are required to go with a little bit unless we can
Oh,
find
just-
some exception, right?
Right, just curious if they,
This is a big project. It wasn't
so,
put out as an emergency salary.
Correct.
It was anticipated to be over 35. You would have to.
Right.
I was just curious if you have any experience with that contract.
Joe, I can ask Joe if he's not here. But,
Okay.
John, do you know M&D Roofing? Do you have any experience? Okay. Okay.
And their insurance and all of that will have to be
They're-
in order.
Their insurance and there should be a performance bond also.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
It should have been part of the bid package, all those things that they needed to submit.
In terms of the bid bond would, the performance bond is usually after the bid gets accepted with their GL and their auto and the like. Before the supervisor actually gives the notice to proceed.
And
Facilities gives the notice to proceed.
we would have to approve it once we get all the paperwork again.
They usually leave that to me to make sure. that,
Okay.
Yeah.
Bonds,
Okay.
Now, here.
Okay.
surety,
Great.
just certificate of
Moving
solvency.
them and then he
It's
gets.
subject to that review.
So
Okay,
we have our
great.
protection that way. There's no monetary threshold for the performance bond, or just anything over the threshold that we approved, the 35 or so.
Typically, any public works project you want a performance bond on.
Okay, so do we need a roll call on that as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
You the first.
We need a motion in a second.
Motion to approve and award the bid for Underwood Farm Shop Barn Roof Replacement to M&D Roofing.
Moved by Mary Shaw.
Second,
Second. Andrew Randall.
roll call. Dan? Aye. Andrea?
Aye.
Mary?
Mary Shaw, aye.
Rich? Aye. And Tony's an aye. Okay, third is the it's a municipality agreement with the county. If you recall the email I sent to everybody, I was invited to this workshop held by the Westchester County, where they're making it easy for communities, so municipalities to install EV chargers. The town board approved, I think 3 years ago, installing EV chargers at multiple locations.
It was more than 2 years ago. Yeah.
It's more than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Did I say so? Maybe, yeah, but anyways, it was like three
Yeah.
years plus maybe. And then we were, the funding we were going after at the time dried up. And then we took a stab at it again. I think it was last year. It was the DEC grant that we applied for, but we didn't qualify. So now this opportunity comes along, and this is where the county will pay us or reimburse us up to 50% of the cost. And they have an agreement with INF Associates. So they're the county partner for putting together proposal, design, and working on the incentive programs through NYSERDA and NYSEG. And the EV charging company is a company called Flow, FLO. So this is would all be done under a county contract. But we would need to sign an IMA with the county, and its municipality agreement.
So question, the signing of the IMA does not constitute, a final commitment to go forward, I'm guessing, right? It's, you still need.
That's my understanding,
Contracts,
you
everything.
still need contracts.
So there's actually like no harm in getting this in place.
It's just availing yourself of the cost, the county
Correct.
costs that it would be,
So
right?
what I would like is for us to approve this contingent on review by council of the actual IMA. And also contingent upon the review of the proposal, which we're working on getting from INF Associates, the outfit that came out.
And who's gonna review that
Well, you-
proposal?
To physically install the units.
Yeah,
Correct.
but is that this IMA, does it have to go hand in hand with the contract to install them, or is this a precondition for that?
Precondition.
So we don't have to make it contingent on those contracts, because those contracts are gonna either be, agreed on by us or not,
Right.
right? So we just.
Okay,
So my only, that's all fine. My only question then is about the on the locations. And where is the input gonna come referable to locations, which leads me into, I'd wanna have, to try and avoid what I think might have been a little bit of an issue, referable to the EVs as far as having the fire departments have input referable to the placement. If there's any potential issues, because I think it was in
Well, they're-
the shopping center, there was
yeah,
Golden Bridge Fire Department had something to say as far as.
yeah, they're concerned,
placement.
I don't know who they spoke to about that, but they spoke to somebody about the concern of the propane tank that's below ground.
Right.
And the EV chargers are not what, it's the vehicles that have had issues with fire, so their concern was, there's a vehicle they're charging, what happens to the vehicle battery catches fire? The propane tank is there.
Right, which is why I'd like to chime in referable to
And we
placement
can,
before we do that.
Absolutely.
We can send the relevant fire departments the, sketch as to where these things are being proposed for. This is just
This is not anything we have to decide tonight.
Right,
Right,
No, other
deciding
than
on the
to
agreement.
put this.
I'm only, yeah,
but
I think-
we're just letting everybody know that we're thinking about the total concept.
Right,
I'm just picking up in your email as far as not solidified, just
right.
because you're talking about potential locations that we should just, as we proceed through the process.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's all.
I agree, yeah, yeah. And then I think once we get this proposal, we have an initial proposal, but there's some changes that need to be done to the proposal. I might have, I'll distribute it to the board.
This isn't that for an amount certain, is it? I guess so it's just motion to approve the IMA.
Contract could be a separate thing that we're
Yeah.
trying to.
They told the supervisor to sign the IMA. The
Yes.
county wants to contribute up to 50% of the cost of it.
Right.
We're trying to get this thing jiggered so that it comes out to near zero for us.
Understood.
It's just,
Yeah. So moved as articulated by council.
Second
Second,
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So let's get that one. We have one more.
Greenway grant for the zoning code.
Yeah, so this is, once the folks are reviewing, including NPV. Consultant that's working on our, comprehensive plan changes, together with Judge Siebert, our planning board attorney. They were reviewing the zoning changes, which, thank you to the board members who contributed. And they came across some additional code cleanup. That initially was not gonna be considered. But they recommend at this point in time, since we are redoing the comprehensive plan, that we should consider these. And there's a grant, so we had approved a budget of $163,000. For this project. They are on budget, so they haven't exceeded budget.
Oh, you had
In
a
addition-
statement at the thousand, okay,
I know,
163,000,
that's
okay,
sorry.
yes.
They secured a $20,000 Greenway grant. So thank you to the comprehensive plan steering committee for doing that. So we have this extra 20K that we can apply towards this additional work.
So we can
It
make
could be
it,
work by MPV and work by Greg Montaleo.
so we can make a motion.
I mean, sorry, John Seaver.
So we can make a motion not to exceed the amount of the Greenway grant of 20,000
We
for
could,
the.
yes, yeah, it'll be less than that, but yeah, the motion could be not to exceed. Yeah.
Okay, and it just so it's sidewalks, EV charging spaces, farm and animal husbandry, wireless, battery energy and solar, short-term rentals.
That's really, that number 6 is very, very important.
Yeah, I know, we recently talked about that.
Yeah.
And putting that on the future agenda.
I've gotten a lot of input on that, and there
Right.
was just something in the New York Times
Mhm.
about football communities having their communities fall apart because
Because
of
of the-
short-term rentals.
Hmm.
So I want to make sure we preserve the future of
Right.
Say
Lewisboro.
football community?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it?
College football.
Oh, you mean
communities.
communities where they have football teams? Okay,
College football teams.
okay. Oh, wow.
Oh, and I just want to say, I mean, the steering committee, they've done a fantastic job, from what I see, the work that they've done, the workshops and the contribution of Andrea and Dan as a board liaison, so thank you all very much for that, it's been great teamwork. So, and we'll move it along as scheduled, and looking forward to the final product.
So liaisons, you're cool with this, up to 20 grand?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
these things are, they came organically out of this and, you know, from various places, and there was some sense of urgency that these not be dropped.
When do you guys want to make the motion?
And that we allocate up to not to exceed $20,000 for additional work from the consultant to develop draft zoning code amendments for the 6 items as presented here.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Does that need to be a roll call?
No offense or nothing.
Okay, so we're done with the business portion, so now we have public comments. So let's start with the public here, anybody want to get up and speak? Actually, somebody would raise their hand. Name and hamlet, and you have 3 minutes.
Mark Wachtel, South Salem. Good evening, everyone. What I'm going to discuss basically dovetails with the need for money. All talking about grants, one-time grants. I'm talking about an income flow that would help alleviate the tax benefit, a tax burden on the residents. I would like to see Lewisboro get a cannabis dispensary. I know you voted against it 3-2 a few years ago. I was told by people who came to council, people who came to my door, that the reason they voted was because they wanted to wait and see how it pan out in other locations. And I think we've seen how it pans out in other locations. Towns and villages and cities have made a lot of money with pretty much no downside. Lewisboro has no commercial tax base to speak of. There's no industry. Through the years, it's just been talk and more talk, possibly a hotel there, possibly an ice rink. Nothing's ever happened, and no new brick and mortar is likely. Let's grasp that this is the 21st century. We have a liquor store. The numbers racket has been replaced by a lottery, which funds education. We have casinos. We have sports betting. Pot is legal in New York. It's legal in Connecticut. It's legal in Massachusetts. Ohio, which is a red state, just passed it. Very well-to-do places have it. Look at the ones in the Berkshires. Pound Ridge is in process. Danbury has a very well-run facility. It's clean, it's well-staffed, it's innocuous. Customers of all ages are in there. It's not any different from a liquor store. It's not any different from any store. I know at least 2 members of this board, when they came to my door to politic, I asked them dead on, have they been to any of these stores? The answer was no. And that's a shame. I think a little homework is warranted because it's millions of dollars of taxpayer money is at stake. And this, again, it's not a grant, it's this year, it's next year, it's the year after. Where would you put it? South Salem's a big town. I think you could fit one. The Golden's Bridge Shopping Center would be a perfect location. At the far end, there's a vacant Bank of America branch. It's got a big parking lot. It's got a vault. Maybe they need a vault. It's easy on, easy off 684. Very small footprint for the income flow. This is a gift horse. Don't continue to look in its mouth. We could do a lot with the extra money, as I've witnessed here tonight. You can reduce taxes, number one, hire more police, improve first responder capability. I think the home value euphoria will end at some point. And you guys are talking about the $2 million bond proposition, which failed. And I don't think that's an issue specific veto. I think that's the taxpayers finally saying no. So now we're talking about a 4% increase for 2024. I think that tax fairness requires that alternatives be considered rather than simply going back to the taxpayer time and time again. So I ask you to reconsider this issue promptly, or at least put it to the voters for a referendum if you feel that it's too politically charged for you to handle on your own. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Let's speak. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Daniela Goldman. I am a Vista resident. I once again stand before you today deeply troubled by recent events that have cast a shadow over our community. Dan Welsh has continued posting anti-Semitic comments, causing distress and discomfort among our residents. Such behavior not only contradicts the values we hold dear, but also goes against the established Board of Ethics for our town. In the Town Code of Ethics, Section 18.5, Part F, it states, each town employee shall endeavor to pursue a course of conduct which will not raise suspicion among the public that he is likely to be engaged in acts that are in violation of his trust. He has clearly violated this policy. Our community thrives on inclusivity, respect, and understanding. Anti-Semitism has no place here, and we must address this issue head on. It is crucial that we collectively condemn such actions and make it clear that hate speech will not be tolerated. I implore the board to take a swift and decisive action to rectify this situation. Our town deserves representatives who embody the principles of fairness, equity, and unity. In addition to expressing my concerns about the recent anti-Semitic comments, I want to bring to your attention the strong collective voice of our community. A petition has been circulating, garnering about 250 signatures, all echoing a shared sentiment, the urgent call for the resignation of the individual who is responsible for these divisive remarks. This significant number of signatures reflects the widespread discontent within our community and underscores the gravity of the situation. It is a clear demonstration that our residents are united in their demand for accountability and a commitment to fostering an environment free from hate. Our community stands together against anti-Semitism, and we look to the board to heal the call for change. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. Anybody else?
My name is Elizabeth Amberling, and I'm from South Salem. Town board members, I'm here to express my concern regarding town board member Dan Welsh's position as a representative of our town. His anti-Semitic rhetoric, actions, and positions are against the moral character of Lewisboro. The following brief timeline will highlight this. On October 7th, the horrific massacre by Hamas occurred. On November 7th, Dan Welsh was elected on the town board committee, a position of significant responsibility in our community. On November 12th, only 5 days after his election, Mr. Welsh began posting anti-Semitic rhetoric regarding the Israeli-Hamas conflict, which were not disclosed during the lead up to the election. Such inflammatory statements not only go against the principle of tolerance and respect, but also raise questions about Mr. Welsh's ability to represent the diverse perspectives within our community. On November 27th, many Lewisboro residents spoke out about Dan's position and called for his resignation. according to our code, our town codes in chapter 18-4, conflicts of interest, reads that no town employee shall have any interest, financial or otherwise, direct or indirect, or engage in any business or transaction or professional activity, or incur any obligation of any nature which is in substantial conflict with the proper discharge of his duties in the public interest. Dan Welsh marched in pro-Palestinian rallies, which he posted on his Facebook page. His Facebook page clearly states that he is a councilman for the town of Lewisboro. If he is anti-Semitic, then how can he equally represent the Jewish citizens? In chapter 18-5F of the general standards, it states each town employee shall endeavor to pursue a course of conduct which will not raise suspicion among the public that he is likely to be engaged in acts that are in violation of his trust. Dan's Facebook posts such as Hamas is not the issue, accusing Israel of ethnic cleansing and genocide, have gone against the code of conduct by revealing his anti-Semitism and violating the trust of the citizens of Lewisboro. Dan also chose to wait until after he was elected to make the Facebook posts mentioned previously, which again raises suspicion about his level of trustworthiness. In chapter 18.6, penalties for offense, in addition to any penalty contained in other provision of law, any such town employee who shall knowingly and intentionally violate any of the provisions of this chapter may be fined, suspended, or removed from office or employment in the manner provided by law. I kindly request the town board to conduct an urgent review of Mr. Welsh's recent statements and actions that break the town codes that he has sworn to uphold by publishing anti-Semitic views, using threatening language to have the Israeli flag removed, and being less than honest in the pre-election period. This board should act immediately to have Dan removed. These behaviors, particularly the promotion of anti-Semitic views, are troubling and go against the principles of respect, tolerance, and inclusivity that we expect from our elected officials. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, town board and Greg, and residents. My name is Beth Ureski. I'm now a resident of Golden Bridge, former Cross River. I'm not going to repeat everything that you guys have just heard from many others, as well as these two amazing residents. 18.4, 18.5, we've all discussed this at quite a bit. However, what's concerning to me is the disappointment that nothing is being said collectively from the town board. Something, Tony, I'm sorry, you are the supervisor. Something from you and the other town board members needs to be, something needs to be done. Something needs to be said. Mr. Welsh, I am sorry that, I know you may think this is personal. It is personal. It is personal to all of us. The fact that you are pro-Palestinian, I have no issue with. I know others, my friends may disagree with me. I personally have no issue with you with that. Everyone is entitled to believe in and support the group that they want to support. That's fine. My issue is, as a town board member, how can you publicly discriminate against one group of people, proving you to be anti-Semitic? You may turn around and say it was done on your own personal Facebook page. That's true. However, you are a town board member. And as a town board member, as an elected public official, you do, and I'm sorry if you disagree, you do have to answer to a higher authority. You do. You are supposed to equally represent everyone in this town. And by the comments that you're making publicly, and by the statements you're making publicly, it's an absolute disgrace to this community. So I urge you, no matter if this is supposed to be your upcoming last term, so and so you can have additional income on your retirement, or you definitely want to see crosswalks and then you could leave, and whatever the other statements are, to me, it doesn't matter. We are where we are right now, and something needs to be done. I also want to add, Andrea, thank you. Because I feel like you are the one board member who has come forth and said something publicly. So not only do we commend you, we honor you, and we are eternally grateful for you. Richard, I know you have made other comments too on Facebook. Thank you. Mary, I'm not just saying, I just haven't seen. But I know you're, from everything I've ever heard from you in the last few years that I've come to know who you are, I know your heart's in the right place. So thank you, and I just hope that you, along with others, step up and do what needs to be done and make the hard decisions to make Dan step down. He was just newly appointed and he needs to step down before the next in the next year and when you go through a reorganization. Tony, you're the town supervisor. You have a higher responsibility than even the four of them. And you need to answer to the community. You and I talked almost 4 years ago about bringing unity back into this community. This is not the way this is done. And I know you know better. So please, I beg all of you to please step up and do something. And Dan, if you want to do the respectful thing, instead of showing up to a menorah lighting, which I thought was an absolute disgrace after the comments you've made, and after how you've proven to be anti-Semitic, the right thing would be to step down. Thank you.
Anybody else? Actually, someone back there.
Good evening. I'm Richard Honold, a resident of South Salem. And I've sent a memo to Supervisor Gonsalves and Police Chief Alfano, and then I've copied other board members on it regarding the traffic situation on Ridgefield Avenue in South Salem. You can read what I've sent, and I'm relatively new to the community, moved here in April of this year. And so there's a lot of history that I may be recapitulating. But in any case, what I just wanted to add to what you may read is that just this afternoon, driving to the post office to mail something and take some compost to the drop off, I was driving on Ridgefield Avenue as I usually do, trying to observe the speed limit, which isn't always easy because of the hills and else. And someone came up behind me, began tailgating me. I stopped at the stop sign at Cross Pond Road. And as I was leaving that, I could see that the person behind me who had been tailgating me was getting ready to pass me. So I tried to move a little bit to the center. And rather than respect that, he blew his horn and blasted past me. As I've done once before, I tried to speed up a little bit to try to get a reading of the Connecticut tag number. And when I was at 40 miles an hour, I said, I can't go any faster than that. But so whoever it was going over 40 miles an hour. And I've had that experience multiple times on Ridgefield Avenue. And many of us have had that experience, and I've had the experience multiple times of being passed. Two of the occasions, the person who passed me actually ran a stop sign. In one case at Cross Pond Road, ran the stop sign in order to pass me. And the other case at the intersection with Route 35, which is extremely dangerous, I think to avoid my being able to read his tag number or her tag number. Anyway, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Kevin Uretzky, Golden's Bridge, and we're going back to that. You've all seen the movie The American President. You may have, you may not have. It's about 30 years old. At the end of the movie, Michael Douglas is playing the president. He says, America, when it comes to citizenship, it's really going to make you work for it because you have to stand there and scream at the top of your lungs about something you truly believe in, while also allowing somebody else to scream at the top of their lungs what you vehemently oppose. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the basic nature of this, okay? And I truly, truly, truly believe in that. That's part of the foundation of what makes America great. But just because you can say something doesn't mean you should say something. And when you do say something, it doesn't make you any less of an ignorant fool. And Mr. Welch, that's you. Your facts that you posted on your Facebook page aren't even correct. You can believe whatever you want. You can express whatever you want. Your facts are not even correct. You said and wrote, and I quote, that the reality is that Israel is responding to an act of resistance by an occupied people. That is unequivocally false, because Israel is not the ruling government of Gaza. Hamas is duly elected as such. You don't clarify that any land that Israel had in Gaza, which was earned in response to attacks against Israel, was given back over the years. You don't cite that Hamas, as I mentioned, is the duly elected governing body. You don't cite that several times Israel has offered a two-state solution to the Palestinians, which was rejected by Yasser Arafat, which was rejected by Mahmoud Abbas. And you don't cite the fact that Hamas's stated public objective is the eradication of Israel and the elimination of the Jewish people. Civilian casualties are horrific. But you also don't address the fact that the reason that the civilian casualties are so high is because Hamas, the duly elected terroristic governing body, doesn't let citizens move about freely and leave the areas under attack, using them as human shields, causing the casualties. So state whatever you want, like I said at the beginning, but your facts aren't even correct. And you're an embarrassment to this board, this town, this population, and the community at large. And I apologize, you may not like that I'm raising my voice, but this is how upset the population of this town is. What does it say to you as a collective group that with very little pushing and so on and so forth, and with all due respect, Janet, I appreciate the time limits, I'm going to finish. What does it say to you as a board that with very little pushing, very little public notice, and very little anything, that already 250 people have signed a petition calling for his ouster? Wait till we really ramp it up. And you have the nerve to show up to a religious celebration, and when approached and criticized to your face, you say this is not the time or place? Well, what do you think is the time or place? You opened Pandora's box, sir, and now you're going to reap the whirlwind. People are not happy with you.
Thank you.
I'm going to summarize with this. I'm sorry, Tony, but I'm going to finish. Because he opened a can of worms he's got to answer for. These two lovely ladies cited the statutes. You know what they are. Failure among the rest of you to act will lead to a true LOL moment. That doesn't mean laugh out loud. That means lack of leadership. You know what the right thing to do is. There is no question here. This is a black and white issue. The man has embarrassed you. Do any of you have the individual or the collective courage to stand up and do what's right? That's the question before this board now. Let's see how much intestinal fortitude the rest of you have to stand up for the right principles and not to alienate the people who live in this town.
Anybody else would like to speak?
Thank you. I'm Peter Gross, and I am a longtime resident of South Salem. As I mentioned at the last public session on this topic, I speak of as the father of a son who was shot through the head by a terrorist from Gaza, the son of a mother who escaped Nazi Germany to the United States when she was 13 and came alone. I know about hatred, I know about prejudice, and I certainly know about anti-Semitism. And this evening, I'd like to share some thoughts about Dan and what he has posted. It appears to some of you that Dan decided to speak out about the events in Gaza for reasons motivated by general and existential anti-Israel feelings that reveal an underlying anti-Semitism. As I've said last time, I've known Dan well for about 20 years, and he is no anti-Semite. That accusation is more than wrong. It's outrageous and it's irresponsible. Those of you who think he is an anti-Semite don't know him, don't understand that Dan is an outspoken equal opportunity pacifist. I personally disagree with parts of his conclusions, but that's not the point. He has spoken out against violence and wars in Ukraine, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Africa, wherever they occur. Dan sees military buildups and brinkmanship as tragic paths to human suffering and to bolstering intolerance. He believes that war is an inhumane failure of imagination in an effort by powerful, often corrupt politicians and arms manufacturers that serves their own interests but offers no real solution to conflicts and exacts terrible tolls in death and human suffering. That's Dan's general philosophy. It's what he believes. This, in his mind, is not really only about Gaza or about Israel's right to exist. It's about the cost of war, and it certainly is not about anti-Semitism. I've looked once again and very carefully through Dan's posts and listened to how you've quoted him tonight. And there's one thing that puzzles me. In the words of people speaking so vehemently, I hear the words of people speaking so vehemently about Dan's supposed anti-Semitism, yet in Dan's statements, I have found criticism of the violence on both sides, including Israel. I have found an adamant criticism of the current Israeli government. I have found statements that the way Israel has used force against civilians in Gaza will not stop Gaza radicalism. I have found compassion for the human suffering on both sides. I found him pointing out the possibility or even the belief that the violence that occurred in Gaza was partly a result of long-term Israeli policies. But I have found absolutely no statement by Dan that can fairly be called anti-Semitic. Wanting a ceasefire and outrage at the actions of the Netanyahu government is plainly and simply not anti-Semitism. We, especially those of us who are Jewish, do ourselves a great disservice by conflating them. Let me say that while I too am extra sensitive to anti-Semitism, given my background, I share that outrage against Netanyahu's far-right Israeli government, and my feelings come directly from my Jewish learning and Jewish values. At this point, in excess of 18,800 people have been killed in Gaza, 8,000 of them children. That's a lot of dead people. 1.5 million people have been displaced, and starvation, lack of water, and lack of fuel reported to have reached true humanitarian crisis levels. A lot of suffering in a war that results in tactics that many inside and outside Israel question. Do you really think Dan should be condemned for raising those concerns? And all the rants and demands that we've heard here, there is a lot of labeling, but not one word disputing anything Dan says. In this specific situation, what Dan has asked is also being asked by more and more Israelis and Jews around the world, and by major humanitarian groups like the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, Save the Children, Oxfam, International Rescue Committee, Human Rights Watch, virtually all of our allies, countries in Europe, and Israel's allies, and even within our own families. Even our government is asking, for what good? What will the bombing in Gaza really, how will it really stop terrorism? Will it lead to a solution or just to more violence, even to a larger war? That's what some of you are condemning Dan for asking. And regardless of what you think the answers are, the questions are anti-war, they are not anti-Semitic. Is Lewisboro the kind of community that should demand he resign for raising these questions? Are we as a community so close-minded that we cannot tolerate in our town a dialogue that's going on in our country's government, in communities across the globe, within the Jewish community, and among the citizens of Israel itself? What is happening to free speech, open dialogue, and democracy in Lewisboro? Finally, a word to Dan's colleagues on the town board. Rich, Mary, Andrea, and Tony, you know, and you've worked with Dan. Do you really think he should be silenced as a voice? Do you honestly believe he's an anti-Semite? If not, where is your voice? Are you content to sit there silently aloof from the fray and let these false claims of anti-Semitism go unanswered? Where is your intellectual integrity and your moral courage? Thank you.
Anybody else? Netta? And let's stick to the 3 minutes.
I'll be on for it now. You didn't Rosen, okay?
Peter.
Peters.
Peter Brooks.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Netta.
I didn't realize it was you. Hi. Hi, I actually just want to,
Name and.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm Netta Schoenfeld, very, very long time resident of Golden's Bridge Colony.
Excuse me, hold on a second. Excuse me.
You're being really
Excuse me,
rude.
Excuse
I
me.
apologize to you, sorry.
Go ahead.
I understand that this is an extremely emotional topic for everybody. I am not nearly as eloquent as Peter, but I would reiterate every single thing that Peter has said. I know Dan. I know that he is absolutely anything but anti-Semitic. I think that if you have a problem with what he's saying, maybe you should engage in a conversation. But if he's not anti-Semitic, I know him. He's all-inclusive. He stands for what's best for Lewisboro. He's worked incredibly hard for the town, on the town's behalf. I am Jewish. I know Dan. He's not anti-Semitic. That's it.
Anybody else?
Ian Leitner, South Salem. I met Dan. He came to my house to, I guess, get my vote, and I voted for him. I teach. I'm an educator, and I'm told not to give my opinion. And I don't think it was his place to give his opinion, even though it was on social media, even though it was on his own time. That's, I understand what Mr. Gross is saying. I hear what he's saying. But there's always two sides, and I hear what my friend is saying and these other people are saying about how me being Jewish, and I have people that live in Israel, and they're constantly going to the bomb shelter because people ask for a ceasefire, but yet the rockets keep coming over to Israel. So there's a lot of death on each side, and the numbers, if they're accurate, Mr. Gross, because we don't know that to be 100%, that there's 18,000 or 10,000 children, it's terrible. But, and again, we could talk about all the wars that the United States has been in, say the last 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, where there probably were hundreds of thousands of civilians killed. War's war, and there's casualties that are going to happen. I'm not saying that's good, but that's the sad fact of war. So I was just saying that I have to keep my opinion in my workplace to myself. So that's something that, maybe you should have done. And then the other thing is, the things that you said, Mr. Gross, about knowing him beforehand and knowing him, maybe the things that you've seen him support or back in the past, maybe it's come to light now with his statements about Palestinians, Hamas. And I don't do social media, so I can't say if anybody else on the board has actually posted anything. I'm going to assume that you haven't, which is probably the right thing to do, is what I'm saying. So maybe that should have been something that you should have taken the lead also, Mr. Walsh. That's it. Thank you.
Anybody else here? Go ahead.
I'm Fred Margulies, live in Golden's Bridge, Jewish. I've known Dan for a long time. He is not an anti-Semite. And I'm not sure what people's motivation are to do this. And I only know that Dan is a peaceful person. And that is what motivates him all the time. And I think if you knew him, which it seems you don't, you would know what is going on here. So I'm sorry this is going on.
Anybody else here?
My name is Tyler Leitner. I'm from South Salem. Similar to what a lot of people have said here, I think that because of the comments made in that post, I originally thought that the post was very anti-Semitic, and I had a lot of negative feelings towards what was happening in my area. And as being Jewish, I wanted to have a conversation with my family about this, as many people probably have. And so during this conversation, I looked up the actual post of what he said. And like Mr. Grossman was saying, I did not find anything to have specifically point out the detriment or the anti-Semitic beliefs that most people will garner. I felt that they were offensive and harsh against Israel. And I believe that that is what they were. And to criticize Israel is not exactly to criticize Judaism. I think that it is a different topic to say if whether it was within his right to talk about that. I'm not here to really say my opinion or anything else, but I believe that of the post that I saw and how I, as a Jewish person, interpret it to be, I did not believe it to be anti-Semitic. Anyways, thank you.
Anybody else here? On Zoom, go ahead.
Yes. Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I just want to bring up two things tonight. The first one is in reference to something that was brought up during public comment, and it's about the cannabis dispensaries. I truly hope we do not go down that rabbit hole again. I'm sorry. Several years ago, we voted 3-2 to opt out. Signatures to push a referendum were not gotten, so that was unsuccessful. And also, there was several hundred people who signed a document against this, including many doctors, including emergency room doctors, including doctors who specialize in drug rehabilitation. The statement that this is going to bring millions into our town is totally false. We would get a pittance of sales, a mere pittance, which would mean nothing. So I'm a little upset because I don't want to go back to things that have already been discussed when they are not going to come to fruition. They are not going to solve our problems regarding money. That's number one. Number two, talking the whole discussion regarding the funds, the ARPA funds. We need things in this town, and we need them badly. Several of them were discussed tonight, some weren't. I agree with Mary, I agree with Andrea, I agree with Rich regarding the well, regarding the disinfectant systems, potentially the bathhouse. I know that's probably something you'd want to put into a master plan or a larger scope project. However, these are things that need to be done. As Mary mentioned, the pool is a moneymaker. People pay good money to belong to it also, residents, and it should be kept up. You know, unfortunately, due to a lack of funds, a lot of infrastructure, including buildings in our town, have fallen by the wayside. Roads. I mean, still, that's always an issue. We can use this money for our roads. And also, I know one of the issues that came up during the elections were how can we help our seniors? One of the things I was thinking about is I don't even know what you would call it, but a trailer type facility that are built like homes. So, you know, where we could put something in the town park, which is centrally located, could be used by seniors and for other meetings. What I don't want to see happen, and I'm sorry, but regarding the bond, I still haven't heard anything on the bond. I know that by the 14th, and mail-in ballots had to be postmarked by the 7th of November, received by the 14th. On the 15th, the Board of Elections updated all the numbers, and still there was no change in the bond numbers. The military ballots had to be received by November 20th. The results had to be sent to Albany 25 days after the elections, which was December 2nd. I have spoken to Chris Burdick's office. I have sent a letter to Senator Harkin's office. I have sent a letter to Governor Hochul's office, and I have spoken to 3 people from the Board of Elections. They have told me that the reason final numbers have not been released is because several towns were in court going over some numbers. They explicitly said we were not one of those towns. So my issue is, why then can Albany or Westchester not release the numbers for bonds and elections that are not tied up in court? So if this bond has been defeated, whether it's 5 votes, 30 or 40 votes, we should not be now looking for $20,000 to $25,000 from ARPA funds to yet fund studies that were going to be part of this bond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Simone Petromellis, I'm asking you to unmute.
Good evening. I'm happy to see everyone's healthy this week. I read and believe if your religion implores you to shout, God is great, while murdering, raping, mutilating, and torturing women and children, perhaps it's time to find a new religion. If you argue that these atrocities do not represent your religion, then stop justifying them. Dan, you state that your religion is peace, but you attend rallies supporting vile behavior. The Palestinians themselves voted for Hamas to govern them, and Hamas are terrorists. The terrorists that started a war with Israel, and Israel has every right to defend themselves. I don't care how much you believe in peace. In a perfect world, we all believe in peace, but when somebody attacks you and puts babies in ovens and rapes women and attacks children at a peace festival, there is no peace, and war does have casualties. I thought after our last town board meeting, you would stop with your rhetoric and hateful comments and acknowledge your words have devastated Lewisboro residents. But instead, I believe you became emboldened by the board's failure to collectively address you. And you continued this hateful behavior and words. We read your awful emails as a result of a FOIL. And as a councilman, in the end, you can't hide. Shame on the Democratic Party for supporting your candidacy. Shame on the residents who voted for you, the ones that didn't come out to vote against you. Shame on the Democratic chair and constituents who have not taken a stand against you. But most of all, shame on you. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated, there comes a time when silence is betrayal, and the time is now. Your position in this town is not just, and injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I'm asking you again to resign. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Simone. Kathy Deutsch, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, I am not here to debate world politics or to discuss what Israel or Palestine should do. But I am deeply concerned about the rise in anti-Semitism, not only in our city, our country, but the world. Many, many civilians are being attacked without reason. Random acts of violence against restaurant keepers presumed Jewish, students at colleges and universities and high schools being bullied and threatened. I believe that rhetoric, such as the rhetoric forwarded by Dan, fuels behavior such as this, and it is dangerous. I am not comfortable having him be a board member. I am not comfortable having him be our deputy supervisor, given his comments and his refusal to stop. If we start having acts of violence in the town of Lewisboro against Jewish people, against Muslim people, against people presumed Jewish shopkeepers, I would draw a line directly to these Facebook posts. We all know what has happened in this country on January 6th, which was preceded by encouragement of hate. And if we cannot observe a menorah lighting in the town of Lewisboro without an armed policeman and a police vehicle, then we are aware that something can happen, and we have never had to have that protection before. Because of the violation that many people feel in the community due to his comments, I feel that he has posed a danger, not only to Jewish residents, but to all residents if violence is perpetrated, if people are indoctrinated. People don't even know what river to what sea they are claiming about, yet still feel that they have a activism to prove. These are lost people, and many of them are being radicalized by comments such as this, and are able to have firearms and are able to enact random acts against others. And I do not want to see this in Lewisboro. So I'm asking Dan to stop. I'm just asking him to stop. I'm asking our board to remove him from deputy supervisor, and I would like him to no longer represent our board. I don't know what else to say. We're living in fearful, uncertain, very challenging times, and this is not helping. This is a detriment. And I ask the board to respond to the community in some way as a whole, not just as individuals, to let us know what your considerations are here. What are your legal abilities here? What are you doing to protect us from the people who might take this as an emboldenment for their own behavior? I thank you and wish everybody safety.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
I'm asking Mickey Denicola to unmute.
Hi, everybody. Mickey Denicola, Golden's Bridge. I had a whole different speech plan, but I first want to thank Barbara Mangione for bringing up the alien tubes over at the shopping center, which is what I call them. Whoever listened to her concerns got them turned down. And I'm very happy about that. And I think a lot of other people in Golden's Bridge are as well. The other part of this, I would like to ask Tony to share the events of my day today with the rest of the board. I don't want to waste 3 minutes being upset about the situation created by this mega project next door to me. I happened to have a Jewish friend of mine over for the weekend, and I took her to my church to celebrate the Moravian Christmas display. We were going to spend the day together, and I had to take her back to the train this morning and deal with the flooding next door. I am getting no response from the building inspector. I was waiting all day for a call back. I went over there myself and was able to get one of their contractors to come over here, and within 2 seconds told me exactly what the problem was, and also told me that he is certified by the DEC as a stormwater management person. He said that these plans are not going to solve the problem. This is a battle I have been fighting for over 20 years. I've been living here 38 years, and for more than half of that time, I've been flooded, and everyone has looked the other way, including every building inspector and every town supervisor. It is now affecting the entire hamlet of Golden's Bridge, safety-wise, disruption of quality of life, everything. I would really appreciate that the board looks into the people who made these decisions and also get someone over there to do oversight. No one is minding that store. And doing my own detective work, it tells me that I'm right and I'm not just sounding off. I really appreciate everybody's comments. I had to sit through this tonight. It's very upsetting to me, the discussion. Thank God Peter Gross spoke. He is a very highly regarded person in my life. And I just want you to know that you should all know that what they've been telling you about the biggest taxpayer in Lewisboro is totally not true. They are not even in the top 10. That's confirmed by the assessor. So I'm really emotional about this because I have really reached my wit's end with this project. So please discuss it among yourselves and do some oversight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mickey. That's it.
Okay, so next we have approval of claims. So we actually have two sets of claims. The ones that were put together for last week. We were originally planning on meeting December 12th, and it is a new set, December 18th. So I'd like to
Motion collectively?
Yeah.
Okay, so moved.
Discussion, a second.
Can we do that, merge the two of them together?
Yes.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I'll start with, polling of the board. Guess I'll start with Dan.
I mean, you heard about the work we've done on the solar and on charge, so I'll leave that. I'll just, there was obviously a motion and too much going on to address all the details. I will say one thing though, that the misuse of the word anti-Semitism and to encompass criticism of a country, Israel, is a terrible mistake. And in fact, you may not know it, but is essentially a commission of anti-Semitism because you are conflating the two. And that's what we don't want to do, right? So, the act of criticizing a country, Israel, is not anti-Semitism. You may disagree with my points. Obviously, my focus is on stopping the war and what I consider to be war crimes. You may think that's a bad position and you're in favor of continuing the bombings. Maybe you hear the reports every day that are out there. 100 some odd people in a Jenin refugee camp killed the other day. 2 ladies killed by a sniper in a Christian monastery the other day. People crushed under walls, knocked over by bulldozers. Every day, hundreds of people every other day. You may think on the global side of things that, that's just, it's a shame, but, for me, that's a deciding factor. And that's where my position, I feel it very, very strongly, because it's all our tax dollars too, when it comes down to it. And most likely, this is going to lead to a wider war, which is going to involve all kinds of terrible things. Sorry, yeah. So I'm gonna leave it there. We have different opinion on, what should be done. Anti-Semitism is not, criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. It's a dangerous place to go to start conflating those two. I understand everybody's very emotional about this and I get it. That's, you should be. But I'll just leave it there.
Did you say something? No. Then let's finish polling the board. Carrie.
Before I get to what I've already prepared, I want you to know the emergency response number for the town of Lewisboro is 914-977-8043. It was inadvertently left off the email that was sent tonight. So if there is an emergency situation, you would like to notify the town, please use 914-977-8043. And I would like to thank the Highway Department, the first responders and the emergency response team for the work they've been doing since Friday. We've been working and preparing and going to meetings and getting things ready to address the weather. And I'm also lost power as well, so I appreciate what everyone's gone through as far as that goes. It's been difficult for me to process the horrors of the terrorist attack of Hamas on Israel. Had an emotional response to it. I'm still sorting through everything stirred up, from gun violence to 9/11, including not knowing whether I was a widow for over 5 hours that day, and mourn the suffering and the death that happened in Israel, as well as the suffering and death that has happened everywhere else. I understand the long history of the conflict and the nuances of the region, but I do not pretend to understand all of it. I strenuously condone all anti-Semitism and any other hate speech or actions. Words are powerful and used throughout history to divide and conquer. I must also let you know that I am not a heavy user of social media. I do not know all of what Dan posted. I didn't know until someone else reposted it and then tagged me. I still haven't seen all of his posts, to be honest with you, and I've tried to find them. I did get a reiteration of it from a concerned citizen. We have to be able to stress civility and humanity towards one another, even when it is difficult. Let us be respectful and sober in our conversations, our debates, and especially in our social media interactions. But please do not expect me to conduct town business on social media. I just do not find it appropriate. I personally do not agree with what Dan said or how he said it. I do believe in human rights for all people. As for Dan, he exercised his right to free speech, but I do not find hate speech that is acceptable. Your input is important to me, and I'm grateful that you care enough to share your perspective, and I listen respectfully. I truly believe in the Constitution and creating connections. I will continue to work on creating a sense of community in Lewisboro and strive to make sure that everyone will feel like they belong. I don't know what we'll do as a board, but I will make sure that we try to do the right thing.
Thank you.
So here's the thing, you either stand with Israel or you don't. And as a country, I feel we should stand with Israel, period, end of story. And when you choose not to stand with Israel, if you choose not to stand with Israel, it causes a lot of anti-Semitic results. I understand the distinction between criticizing the country, the state of Israel versus the people. However, that is not the sentiment that we have been seeing in the news across the country and in this town and across this county and in this state. It's happening. So when you come out and you speak anti-Israel, it has repercussions. That said, I strongly believe in free speech. I appreciate it. All of you who have followed me over the past several years know that I feel very strongly about that. However, when that speech causes these types of feelings to arise, it causes the separation in our community again, the divisiveness in our community again. Intentionally, unintentionally, it causes it. And over the past couple of years, since I've joined the board, I have felt that a sense of calm has come back to the town, and we are operating more as a community. And the past couple of weeks, I have felt it going in the opposite direction again, and I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate the fact that I'm sitting here tonight having to address this, not because it doesn't deserve to be addressed, but because this isn't the job that I was elected to do. If I wanted to opine on these topics, I would have run for Congress. I didn't. I ran to be your town board member to talk about the budget, to talk about ARPA funds, to talk about those things that affect your life every day here in the town that we as board members can control. I didn't run for this office to lecture you all on a day-to-day basis on how I feel world politics or world policy should be. We would be here for hours. None of us want that. That said, if someone wants to be an activist, more power to them. And I appreciate that. But when you choose to run for office, you make certain decisions, at least I did, that there is a certain part of yourself that you give up or put aside for the benefit of the people that you represent. And this is part of it. Now, I'm going to move on to part of what it is that I'd like to do as town councilman and bring your attention to another sad moment in our town, and that is another family had a fire in town. Thank you. All right, and Allison Biddle and her husband Mark had a fire. They pretty much lost everything. Similarly to what's happened to a couple of families earlier this year. They have 2 small children. Christmas is next week, and they have nothing. So I would ask, out of the kindness of all your hearts, if you are able in any way, shape, or form to send kind words, go to the GoFundMe page and help them through this difficult time. As a resident, as a friend, as your town councilman, this is what I was elected to do. And that's council people. I don't get offended by any of it. I serve the town on this board, and I'd like to direct everyone's attention please back to the things that we all enjoyed addressing as town council people. So.
Thank you. All right, Rich.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I'm gonna probably meander around a little bit. I've been thinking about this for, I guess, a good couple weeks. Talk about representing. My job is to represent all of you, all close to 13,000 of you to the best of my ability, and that's what I've tried to do in my 25 years being in town, serving the community in so many different roles. And some things I want to say. First of all, there was something that was put out by 63 New York State senators and assembly persons of both parties. October 20th, it was I guess a press release. New York legislators stand with Israel. The despicable sneak attack against the Israeli people is a war crime. The taking of hostages, the wholesale murder of civilians, the use of torture, the beating, mutilation, and killing of captured soldiers, and the parading of their bodies and the bodies of dead civilians through the streets of Gaza is a cruel, barbaric, and brutal throwback to primitive times. As we stand in solidarity with the Jewish state, we must confront the profound question of whether a free, liberal, and democratic nation can defeat a culture founded on tyranny. The answer is clear. We will win. The good people will win, as long as we stand together and united. Nor is it Israel alone that is at risk. America, plagued by rising anti-Jewish hatred and rising hatred for the other, is as well in danger. What is at stake is the very survival of democracy itself. We are aware that those aligned with Hamas, Russia, and Iran are doing their best to turn public opinion against Israel. This is the same tactic now used by proponents of tyranny and oppression to undermine American support for Ukraine. We will not allow this to happen on our watch. We will continue to fight for democracy. We will continue to stand with Israel. And as I said, 63 state representatives, including our own Assemblyman, Chris Burdick, is on that. And I thank him for his signature on this. And this kind of succinctly talks about my position and my view on this issue. Now, I heard and I appreciate what everybody said, and everybody has a valid perspective and a valid point based upon what they said, and it was all value-added, and I took all of it in. But I want to just talk about Dan as far as my view on this. First I'm going to start what people have talked about for you to resign or censured, or that's, to me, that's a personal decision as to what you would decide to do. Legally, what our role is here, that's nothing that this board should be involved in under the law, under process. That's just what it is. What somebody, my feelings or emotions or something else, but that's something for Dan. That's not on the table just based upon what the law is, was based upon what the process is. People should be aware of that. And that's not really what the focus of what I want to say. And Dan and I have known you a long time. We've exchanged comments on different things, and we've exchanged things on issues. And, you know, I'm pretty much of an absolutist First Amendment stuff, and that's all fine. And I appreciate different perspectives. But as I see it here, from the time the postings came in and we exchanged stuff and people have chimed in, there's certain facts here. And one of the facts is you have neither acknowledged nor accepted nor validated or apologized for the impact of your comments to many, many hundreds of people in this community. And somebody mentioned about your ability to represent the diverse perspectives of our community. And as a citizen myself, it really makes me think about, even here today, and I've tried to give you openings as far as try and welcome you to hear that. And for someone who's been so empathetic and so supportive of so many groups and so many causes over so many years, for, like you said, 40 years anti-war, you have not said to the people of this community, the hundreds, if not thousands of Jewish members of this community, you have not said, I am not anti-Semitic. I don't believe you are, but you haven't said it. Other people have. You haven't said it, and I don't believe you are, but you haven't said it on behalf of yourself, which is something that you should. You have not acknowledged, accepted, validated, or apologized, like I said, for the impact of your comments to people in this community. You have not done that over weeks. I don't understand how a person who's so empathetic, so sympathetic, understands different causes. You haven't said to your community, not people in Israel, people in Lewisboro, your neighbors, this, I understand, I can appreciate what this has done, what this situation has done, what these comments have done, what my words may have done to impact you. I accept it, I acknowledge it, I apologize for any hurt or pain I may have caused to you, the members of the community. You grew up in this community. You know the history of the anti-Semitism, even in this town, from swastikas that have been in the schools. You have had firsthand experience with this. You are in a better position than most in this community to be able to have that, to be cognizant of that. But you have been silent over the period of weeks. You've talked about you're an anti-war, great, but you have not come from a position of leadership, from community leadership. You haven't said, I understand it, I appreciate what you're going through, and I'm going to be here for you, and I'm going to talk to you about it. You haven't, again, I'm sorry, it's getting personal. I've known you for decades. You haven't picked up the phone. Rich, can we get some coffee and can we talk about this? I want to figure a best way. Maybe you have some perspective. And that's something I do. I've talked to dozens of people about this. I pick up the phone and talk to the other people on this board when there's things I don't know about, I don't understand, which is virtually everything, but I want to have an opportunity to learn. And this, to me, has been a failure of leadership in your role as someone who has been elected to serve this community. It's a failure of leadership based upon your failure to demonstrate the awareness that you have of how it's impacted people and how you've hurt people. So I think the appropriate thing, and I spoke to Tony about this privately a couple of times, I think the appropriate thing is that in the new year, that Tony, who has say on this, that you should not be reappointed as deputy supervisor. I think that's the appropriate way going forward. Again, I've talked about what it shouldn't be and what it should be. It comes from a place where I think that this community needs leadership going forward. It needs unity going forward, and it's an opportunity in the new year to maybe move forward. And Tony, I hope you'll seriously consider that as an opportunity to take all the good work that you've done to heal this community. People know it was Tony who drove down to Brooklyn to get the menorah and do that. and I know collectively, we all appreciate everybody in this community, and that's what makes it such a special place. But you've knowingly, at this point, you've knowingly caused pain and hurt to people, and you haven't opened your heart to just say that. You've been beating the drum of anti-war, but this is another part that it's undisputed that you haven't done that despite having the opportunity to do so. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Rich. All right, just a couple of business items here. There was a question about the bond. So, yeah, what's posted online by the Board of Elections is not official, but we did have a statement from them saying that the results that are posted are the final results. So the bond did not pass by 37 votes. And yes, and I called the Board of Elections as well about a week and a half ago, and they said the same thing that Oregon and Joe mentioned, which was that they couldn't post the final results until they had settlement on the still outstanding elections where the votes were closed and the recounting and all that. But I'm sorry?
Harrison and North Salem.
Yeah, so, but the bottom line is they told me over the phone that, yeah, the results on the bottom are not gonna change, and they confirmed that in a letter to us, actually, to the town clerk.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's where we are. So that's, yeah, so that's the issue there, so, let's see. There's a comment about the seniors. We're working with them, we're developing a plan. We think we have a plan in place as soon as we come up with what we're gonna do. I'm gonna present that, and basically it's regarding existing space at LES. Actually, I have another meeting tomorrow morning. We're gonna rearrange some space in the senior store. They're very happy with that, if we can make it happen. So, and it's of no cost to the town. It's included in the existing rent that we pay for use of that building. Mickey DiNicola, yes, Mickey and I spoke this morning, and we've spoken many times regarding her neighbor. This is the Mercedes project. Yes, there's an issue that needs to be addressed, that she's been complaining for years, related to water and stormwater that goes onto her property, and it's going to get fixed. So that's I spoke to our building inspector, who immediately went over there with the rains, wanted him to see for himself what's going on. He met with the construction people and the engineers, and there will be a solution. So we have promised Mickey that would be addressed.
That was supposed to be done in the earliest part under the planning board resolution. That was in the initial phase, actually, it was supposed to be rectified.
In the resolution itself, it says that that's one of the figures. So I highlighted that so everybody make sure they're all aware.
You specifically addressed that.
So it's yeah, so that'll be fixed. NICEAG, yes. I mean, I know we went through a lot today with loss of power.
Loss of streets.
Been on many, I don't know if people saw my updates on Facebook, and also I sent out an email blast. So this was a pretty wicked storm, and apparently the storm picked Lewisboro. We were the worst between Lewisboro, Pound Ridge, and actually part of Patterson. We got hit hard. Fortunately, NICEAG, when they had mentioned they were going to allocate resources to Lewisboro, when I drove in this morning, the town park had, I don't know, close to 20 trucks there. So they staged in our town park. They went to work immediately. With the strong winds this morning, they have to be cautious, right? They don't want to jeopardize the health and safety of their workers. So it took time. But they went from 18,800 folks without power in the Brewster division, which we're part of, and I think Lewisboro maxed that something like 6,000, I think, which were.
Well, Mary told you, I think 40 or 50 poles had to be.
Poles that were broken, and they're in the process of repairing.
Yeah, so
at 3:00, it was 5,993. And I know our power down in Vista got restored like almost 7 o'clock. So
So
The
just to,
numbers are improving slowly but surely, but we want everybody to be safe, including the linemen. So,
thank you. So they, just to add, as far as the weather, they said they were 50-mile-an-hour gusts here in Lewisboro that they measured, probably they measure weather patterns and to what Mary said, that was enough to cause, my first question is, okay, tell me the usual, it's trees, right? And it's trees that are not within your right of way, they are private property, because usually that's what happens. Because they did a lot of tree clearing, and it said there was utility poles, 18 utility poles that broke. And it takes about 4 to 5 hours per pole to replace and rewire. So there was a lot of work, but they had, all hands on deck. And before I came, so this evening I was actually exchanging text messages with a couple of folks from Oak Ridge. At that point, we had about 2,000 people or households without power. And there's a large amount at Oak Ridge as well, right, that were without power. Or pretty much all of Oak Ridge. And by the time I came down here, that number was down to 1,000 households. And now they're down to 104.
Is mine on?
I don't know. That's with the street here.
there's a great, that work that we've got power.
So so the numbers, so hopefully everyone, I'm sorry, actually Lewisboro, we're down to 14 without power. So we're getting close, so hopefully the remaining 14 folks will see power tonight and won't have to go overnight, because it is gonna be colder tomorrow. But in case anybody does need, if they're still without power, there's a possibility, depending on how bad the damage is, if they still need assistance, they can go to the library, will be open as a warming center. They have internet. We have somebody here using our internet this afternoon, so we'll have resources. So if anybody needs help, certainly reach out to myself or the number that Mary provided. You want to repeat that number?
Sure. Let me just untuck it. 914-977-8043. Once again, that's 914-977, not to sound like a commercial word, 8043. There's also a New York alert system. We're the first town in Westchester County to sign up for it. It's a new 3-level notification. So, I will have
It's on the website, so sign up.
Yeah, please do. And we are.
Wait, if you were signed up to the old system, do you have to
It's the same system, nothing's changed.
It's the same
It's a
system.
system.
It just upgraded behind the scenes.
Okay, so you don't have to take action if you
No,
already.
no, if you're already signed up for it, you're getting the emails about all the.
So yeah, the information on how to sign up is on our website, but if you have any questions, reach out to Mary or myself. It's a good system. Right now, I'm the one that has access to it, so.
No, you're not the only one.
So I can send messages and yeah, so that's that. Yeah, just getting back to, I appreciate all the feedback from everyone. It's we're told not to get involved in international issues. I know how busy of a day I have taking care of Lewisboro issues, and my preference is to not get involved with international issues, but it's it's tough when you try to be inclusive, right? So when I hear people say, yeah, you're not being inclusive enough, but you know what? I'm the guy that started Minorlay. Where were people before that? And it's, so obviously we want a community that is able to live together, work together, and maybe understand where people come from. I actually invited Dan to my house to meet with someone, Jewish friend, who was also against what he said. And we sat around the table and I let them hash it out, right? And at the end of the night, they were friends to begin with, but they were, I guess they understood each other, right? They knew where she was coming from. And I certainly know, I have a lot of Jewish friends, and You know, I've been to a concentration camp and stuff. Yeah, just stop waiting. So yeah, so we just gotta figure out how to move forward. And I'm sorry, I get emotional with this stuff. It's funny, I have my son who's wants to be a peacemaker. He's now working for the State Department, and I consult with him on a regular basis. John, what do you think about this? So he gives me his professional opinion. You know, he looks at both sides. And so I'm glad I have him as someone I can bounce things off of. But yeah, I'm sorry, it's just me, I'm a mush. But hopefully we'll find a way to, you know, bring everyone together and continue the celebrations that we've been good at putting together and moving the town forward. And you know, doing what matters and focusing on things that are important. So that's all I have to say. I mean, there's you know, obviously there's yeah, what happened is horrific. The October 7th attacks. You know, Hamas, you know, is the issue. They need to be eradicated. And hopefully our world leaders will come up with new ways of being able to come together and develop lasting peace. You know, so that's my hope. So with that,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
I just wanted to ask a question.
No.
When you're done.
So when we're done with the meeting.
I'll wait.
And yeah, you can ask me questions, so. So yeah, so thank you all again, I you know, it's, I've been listening to both sides, I've been having conversations, and Rich and I have spoken, we both spoke. And it's tough, but I think we can get past this and you know, and have another Hanukkah celebration with hot chocolate. Of course, next year.
Donuts.
Or
Donuts.
donuts.
Jelly donuts.
Yeah, so whatever else you want to add to the mix, it's fine. So we're, you know, so that's my, you know. It's in terms of yeah, announcements, I think I have a couple of things. Yeah, that's part of, yeah. So one is a longtime employee, A. Fairnaz, who started working for Lewisboro in 1961. Worked for was he with Highway initially? Janet, I think he was with Highway, then retired after 34 years, retired in 1995. Continued part-time with us, helping our maintenance team until February of this year. He's the one that beautified the front of the townhouse, he did the plantings. He unfortunately passed away, went to his wake Friday night. So I'm sure he's in a good place now. That's steady. Thanks, everyone. What else do I have? Yeah, just another, you know, for those with an interest in the sewer project that we were pursuing. We were not successful in getting one of the grants. Doesn't mean that it's over. There was this New York State FC grant, which is about $7.5 million. So trying to find out why we didn't qualify, but we have other grant applications that are in the works for that project, and hopefully we'll come up with the total amount needed to move this project forward. So I'll keep everyone posted on that. And I think that's all I have for announcements.
The next meeting.
What's that? The next meeting? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the next meeting is the organizational meeting. It will include a town board regular meeting as well, Monday, January 8th, 7:30 here at the townhouse. And now I'd like to motion to go into executive session for.
So that people know as far as swearing in stuff is January 1, 11:30.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So that was the other announcement I forgot. But January 1st is our inauguration here at the library, 11:30 a.m. So whoever can make it, be there. So be nice to see everyone. Yeah, and I guess now motion to go into executive session for an interview for somebody for committee.
So moved.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Aye, thank you.